Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to our webinar, the Search for Total Search, Lessons from Machine Learning on Incrementality. We're very excited to bring you this session today because in light of rising costs and a stagnating economy, leveraging machine learning to migrate from siloed views of paid search and organic search to one focusing more on total search can be a really easy way to massively boost your efficiency and your growth without really spending any additional money. So we've got a great panel of speakers here for you today. We've got Keir from Incubeta and Kaz from M&S. Keir, I'll kick it over to you if you want to start us off with just giving a bit of intro.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks very much for joining us and taking the time out of the day. I'm the Seamless Client Manager, so my role essentially is when we get set up with Seamless Search, I onboard the clients and make sure that everything's running as smoothly as possible. And I will hand over to Kaz.
Hi, I'm Karen, or Kaz, and I'm the Paid Media Manager at M&S, responsible for Clothing and Home and Ireland.
Great, thanks you both for joining us today. Just quickly, an agenda. So first up, we've got Keir giving us a bit of information on how advertisers can make this migration to total search. And then we're going to have a great Q&A session with Karen, talking through M&S's journey in migrating to this manner of optimization. Please, we do have a question function open in the chat, so please do pop them in. Hopefully anything that come through we can add to the Q&A at the end. But for now, I will hand you over to Keir to talk us through total search. Thanks, Keir.
Awesome. Cheers, Max. Yeah, it's time for us to go straight into things with the search for total search. I will get straight into things. Just give you a little bit of background on who we are for those who are tuning in and may not have heard of us before. We're a global team of digital experts building connections and solutions for our clients through a digital marketing agency. We're a performance marketing agency of the year for 2022. And in terms of the Seamless that we will be talking through today, we launched that in 2020. So we kind of wanted to go straight into things with the kind of age-old questions of search and comparing it to organic activity. Is paid search actually worth it? If you were to turn it off, how much would your organic pick up, the kind of slack that would be missing there? And then how can I find a way to only spend money when it's adding value? So we want to make sure that we're being as incremental as possible when we are working on bids here. And yeah, as I said, we are just looking to make sure that is paid search incremental? And then when we look at it, we kind of wanted to break it down into the 4 key areas of things. How incremental is it? When is it incremental? How does it vary? And how can I achieve incrementality across the board in terms of my paid activity and my organic activity from an SEO perspective? Cool. So we wanted to look at the way that things were run before. If we take it back to kind of 2020 and how we looked at things, we found that the existing approaches that were being run before were insufficient, the Google method and the scraping method. And by that, I mean the fact that when we were running tests, they're at a top level. What happens is you kind of do an A/B test and half your keywords are paused or blocked in your cookie pool. Obviously, that kind of is done over a month's period. It's not sufficient data to be able to make key findings from. The recommendations that you used to get off the back of those would be kind of sweeping. So they would give you some for a lot of the intricacies would be missing. You wouldn't have all the kind of competition, CPCs, CTR, and so on. And also, this was also done on a one-time analysis we found a lot of the time where tests are done maybe at the start of the year or when you're setting up with a new client. That actually wasn't the best way to do things because this could have left activity could change over the year. Obviously, you have seasonality and a lot of other things that come into play. So, and we know that the landscape in the paid market changes every single day. We wanted to look at the fact that when we are looking at the overlap of paid and organic. So if we take this example on the screen here, you can see keyword X. Imagine that kind of being in this example. Let's take M&S dresses. So you have your paid activity, your organic activity, and your organic competition. If we were to remove the paid activity, we want to know how much the organic activity, your organic activity would pick it up, and would this change things? So what impact would that have to your click-through rate? What does that mean in terms of your revenue? And how much does the paid listing cost? Is it worth actually removing it? And would that kind of how that changed on the landscape. And the answer to this will always be, there will always be a price where having both listings drives better performance. It's never a kind of black and white decision. Things can change per keyword and also change on a daily basis. So our goal, we want to make sure that we are maximizing incrementality as much as possible. And the best way to do this, we like to put a sentence here that kind of explains it as best possible. We want to make sure that we find the point where any additional pennies spent or saved no longer nets more than a penny back. So that's kind of the point where we can achieve maximum incrementality. And I think this graph kind of summarizes it in such a good way. So if you look at the bottom, we've got the cost, and as the cost increases, the revenue goes up. But always in terms of these diminishing returns, you do hit a point where if you keep on increasing the revenue, you actually, increasing the cost, you're not going to net any more revenue. So what we've done is we've put the point where the gradient drops below 1 is the point where the max bid is set. So as you can see on the graph, that's the point where we achieve maximum incrementality. And then this is another good graph that kind of summarizes what we are talking about here. So if you take, we've got 5 different keywords here. So if we look from the left-hand side, to achieve incrementality, what Seamless will do is look at the missed opportunity. So we can increase the bid on keyword 1, and that would allow us to achieve more from what we are spending. And then if we go to the keyword 5 on the far side, we're actually over investing. So Seamless would be, the machine learning would tell us that we need to pull back and spend a little bit less on what we are than we currently are now. What we're trying to achieve is where we can see keyword 3 is perfectly positioned, where there isn't any extra money being spent, and we are pushing as much as possible. So our solution is to make sure that we are leveraging machine learning as much as we possibly can. To do this, we need to make sure that we build a full picture of the search landscape. So what we did, obviously, as a lot of you know, if you're from an SEO background, you can go into Google Search Console, and you have it's missing a few key points on the data point there. Google has taken these away and haven't had them for about 15 years. So what you can see is impressions, clicks, and position. However, Google Ads, when you're looking at your paid activity, you get a lot more. You get your conversion rate, your AOV, and your transactional data. So what we do, we leverage this data, as you can see from the arrow. We take the data there and we map it against for each keyword, we map it against the Google Search Console, and then we push that into Seamless Search to learn every day. So we take each query by device, and we do that every single day. And as you can see in the example on the left-hand side, we're looking at, say now for M&S dresses, we want to make sure that we are covering as much of the SERP page as possible. Obviously, we're factoring a load of different things, including kind of like if we increase the bid, how does that affect kind of our site links, how many site links show, and make sure that we're not getting any leakage on that page then. And the way we look at that then, Seamless Search is the only platform that enables advertisers to manage their paid and organic search activity in unison. So the way that we put the 1 and 2 together there, so we take the paid search activity and we take the organic activity, and we make sure that it's put into one place. So every day, because it's machine learning, it's taking all the data and pushing out something at the end. So we're taking all the factors to make sure that we're getting the true search reporting as much as possible. Excuse me. So we take all the internal factors that we can. So the paid position, the organic position, that's being pushed in. And then also we take a lot of the external factors. So just to make sure that we're covering as much as possible when the machine is learning, the organic competition and the paid competition, how things change in terms of seasonality, economic trends. This is all being factored in. So we are making sure that we are the best place to be in terms of our true search bid optimization. And then when we are making the changes, that the bids are optimized as much as possible. So when we look at this, then we're talking about the results being really good, and we've gone into the fact that the stories are even better. So this on the right hand side, you can actually see what the dashboard would look like when we do set up Seamless. We would be able to share this with anyone who would want to see it in terms of how things are applied across the board. So you get all this data. We want to pass it back to you so we can be as clear and transparent as possible. But then, yeah, we can go into some of the stories on this to talk through them then. So we want to make sure that the internal questions, the machine learning is answering as best possible. So we've got some examples here where these are real live tests that we have run in the past. However, we've made them anonymous, so obviously no client data is being breached here. Oh, I'm sorry, I've just missed one here. In terms of the way this is set up as well, we send over a dashboard that's quite it's very intricate. There are a lot of metrics here, and the best way to think about this is the fact that you're taking a lot of the organic data that you'd normally have, but it's got some of the paid information there as well, so you can map it against each other. And as I said, you can see from some of the information here, you get the seamless keyword trends, so that allows you to see as much data as possible. And you've got the seamless search summary at the top there, where you can see everything at once, and it tells all of these times it will tell a very good story of how things work. And also we also look at the total search margin, which is something that which takes the paid revenue and the organic revenue and takes away the paid costs. So you have a good figure of how things are going across the board. Cool. So let's get into some of the questions and answers in terms of some problems that we've seen and that Seamless has been able to help out on. So the business challenge from Maya here were the budgets are tight, but still wanting to grow revenues. I need to find efficiencies to free up some budget. So essentially, in this case, we wanted to stretch some of the budgets further. And when you take that from a search perspective, you look at the fact that the organic doesn't pick up the traffic when I pause keywords with no competition. How can I find the optimum point here? So in terms of things, we were able to find efficiencies where we could reallocate some of the spend across the board. So the machine learning will take all the information in and spit it out on the far side. We found room to reduce the spend massively. So we pulled back some of the paid traffic, which meant a decrease in the total cost of the CPCs. We did notice that the search margin went down, but this is only by 3%. And when you factor in the fact that the total search cost has been reduced by 60%, we'd consider this quite a big win. And the return on ad spend then also being up over 100%, we can consider this, very a big win across the board there then. And you can see in this one, we can see that organic will pick up the slack where we have pulled back the traffic on the paid activity. Going into the second one here, we can see that Melanie had a different problem where the business wanted to grow, but the budget is a bit more finite. She's willing to spend more, but only where she has the confidence it will lead to verifiable growth. And then when we take this from a search perspective, you can see that you get great organic traffic from some generic product terms with a lot of paid competition. So it's worth entering the fight. So when we look at this, we're looking at kind of a finite budget where pushing paid, is it worth it at the expense of the organic activity that seems to be doing quite well? So what happens here with Seamless, we can see that we've got some quite big figures here. However, when we take it from the top line here, we increased the clicks across the board by 90% and the click-through rate went up. Obviously, we are now running more paid activity. This does lead to a big increase in cost. But as you can see, this is kind of handled by the fact that the revenue's gone up over 64%, and also the total search margin has also increased here as well. So again, another win from the Seamless perspective. And then we kind of get into our third point here, where we've got the business challenge from Simon, where the site performance is down over a period, where this could be, seasonal, economical, maybe coming into Christmas or anything around Q4. So they needed to scale back and save budget for future periods, but they needed to know where to do so because they wanted to be as efficient as possible. And obviously with Seamless, we're trying to be incremental, so this works really well. And in terms of when you take it from a search perspective, the conversion rate has been down. So is there scope to scale back and rely on the organic listings more? So again, taking into Seamless, we were able to increase the excuse me, we did push things a little bit more, so the cost has risen quite by about 50%, meaning that the CPCs were going to rise. But this was not at the kind of expense of anything. So the click-through rate was down ever so slightly, but this did mean that the ROAS was up, and we managed to get pull back on the conversion rate dropped slightly then as well. Sorry, and then also the total search margin was slightly down. However, you can see because the ROAS is up and the cost is down, that this was again a win. Excuse me, I realized I got my words wrong there. The cost has gone down, and this was where we got the win for Seamless here. And onto the final business challenge that we saw from Seamless. So this is for kind of a smaller business here, where sometimes where the budget isn't able to stretch so big because it's a small budget. We wanted to get more out of what we have and make sure that we invest across the board in sustainable growth. When we take that from a search perspective, we want to make sure the organic position has improved. How should I react? What's the SEO improvement worth? And again, this one's kind of, we managed to make sure that the organic position stayed the same. However, we did increase activity. The CPCs, we pulled back on activity because the organic activity was doing really well. So the cost has dropped and the CPCs have dropped, meaning that we're making savings. And then again, it leads to the fact that the ROAS is going up, with the click-through rates again maintaining very similar position, and that kind of leads to a total search margin win then, where we increased that by 60%. So in terms of things, how can you get started monitoring total search performance from tomorrow? And this is kind of takeaways that you can do straight away. You want to make sure that your activity is linked up to your search console is linked up to your Google search ads. This is obviously something that Google provides, so you can't really complain if they've got that tool there for you to use and you're not using it, to leverage the data as much as possible. Then the next step would be to isolate your top SEO terms in paid. So anything that you see that has high organic volume, you want to make sure that you have exact match keywords across the board there, and negative them out from other campaigns so you can put them somewhere else and concentrate them. This is something that obviously Seamless is doing on our end and works really well. And then make sure that you're familiar with paid and organic across the board. It's the best way that you can get a view on total search performance. These reports, you can track the total clicks over time, and then you can decide whether you need to pull back or push on with some of these keywords then. And in terms of things, it's also best to design some tests for these, so you can make sure that you're adjusting your strategy as you see fit, and make sure that you're monitoring the total click volumes over time by each keyword. You can obviously develop an approach to deliver better total search value then. Awesome. And I believe I'm handing back over to Max for questions with Karen.
Brilliant. Thank you, Keir. Appreciate you taking us through that. Some great tips on how you can get started with total search even before looking into Seamless. But great, it'd be great to move on now to chat with you, Karen, and talk us through sort of your journey in onboarding to total search. But first, if you want to just give us a bit of a more of an overview about your role and what you handle at M&S.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm the paid media manager for M&S. So I manage a team who are responsible for all the paid marketing channels, so across paid search, paid social and display, and affiliates. We manage all the performance marketing across all the clothing business units, beauty, home, and flowers. And we've also recently taken on performance marketing for Island 2. We manage multi-million-pound budgets, and this is responsible for close to 30% of .com's revenue. Part of our job is also working really closely with our colleagues in the SEO team, above the line media and CRM, but also working with our agency partners and our platform partners as well.
Great. Yeah. I mean, I haven't met many people who manage more business units than you do, Kaz. M&S is a behemoth. But thank you for that. So I just wanted to start us off with really, why was it important for you to start leveraging your organic data into your paid search campaigns?
So a couple of years ago, the big focus in the business was improving SEO visibility and performance. And part of that was sort of raising questions about how efficient our PPC campaigns were, and was any of our activity like cannibalizing the SEO performance? And was this a reason why SEO performance was like underperforming? So we wanted to sort of like use all the data that we had to sort of like work on a solution so that we could prove to the business that either PPC wasn't cannibalizing SEO, or how we could use this data to sort of like optimize our PPC approach. So like using the data that we had from SEO, so using the insights and visibility data, we sort of identified that it was really our brand generic keywords that were likely to be cannibalizing like the SEO performance. So like previously, like Keir had mentioned, we'd been using like quite a rudimentary way of sort of like pausing keywords if there had been like competitors appear on our keywords, but this wasn't like sustainable. It was only on a few keywords. It definitely wasn't efficient. So, you know, we wanted a sort of like an automated solution, a tech solution that sort of could work across lots of keywords. And combine not only like whether competitors are present, but what else is happening with SEO, like what are the visibility scores like on SEO, and lots more signals, so that we could get like a holistic view on how our keywords were performing.
Yeah, no, that sounds very familiar. In fact, that's the way Incubeta used to manage to total search previously too. Was, you know, how can we look at pausing those keywords where there's nobody? Can we look to reactivate them when there's nobody? But as Keir mentioned, I think, you know, it becomes a you know, an on or off binary decision. But the reality is, you know, at a certain price, you know, having that extra space in the SERP is going to be worth it, you know. So it's right, we'd much rather let the data do the talking than the any assumptions.
And M&S is sort of coming, this sort of like new approach is like data first as well. So it's a big thing at M&S to use data in our insights. So sort of like being able to adapt that with our activity is a good plus for us.
Great. And what is that, you know, pivot to total search meant to M&S as a business?
Well, top line, it's sort of driven cost efficiencies to the business. So by being able to reallocate some of the budget away from some of those brand generics that weren't driving incremental growth and only driving sort of like a last click revenue, we've been able to drive cost efficiencies that way. So we've reallocated the budget. We've done a lot of tests and sharing insights from our seamless activity. So over the last year, our CFO has been on our backs about how much money we spend in PPC, and is it actually driving growth for the business? Is it driving incremental revenue? And by sort of like using the seamless data, we've been able to earn his trust, because we could prove that our spend on those keywords wasn't cannibalizing SEO, and actually we were driving a combined incremental revenue across both PPC and SEO. So I think that's the biggest thing that we've sort of like driven reassurance to our directors in the business, that where this big pot of money is going is actually driving future growth and future revenue. And it's allowed them to actually or it's enabled us to continue to spend the budget without having so much pressure on us this year. So.
Yeah, that's great. I think, but having it being a very data-driven decision and have it boiled down to, you know, talking about profits and margins, etc., is kind of the ammo you need to deal with these conversations with the purse string holders, I'm sure. And I guess has it made a big difference to the way that you manage search more broadly?
So we now it's not so siloed anymore. So we are looking at how our performance is sort of like across all the channels. And it has allowed us to reallocate that sort of any spend that we now don't need to put into our brand generics across other keywords. So we, you know, if we know there's an opportunity to pull back spend because SEO might be picking up, or even if there's where we can push spend on PPC because we know that we can still drive more growth with that combined revenue, it's allowing us to sort of like change our direction there. And like we use Seamless, and it has allowed us to sort of like speed up that process. It's automated, it happens real time. So we know that we're like fully efficient and everything, and we know that it is driving incrementality. And you know, and the SEO landscape changes all the time, you know, like Mike, my colleague in SEO, is always telling me that the visibility rankings are changing, or there's a new Google update that may have changed things. And so by having that automated tech, we know that we're still confident that our activity, the spend is going to the activity that's still driving incremental revenue, because an SEO keyword might now have dropped position or vice versa like this. So we've also, because we've seen success on our brand generics, we've now actually started to add in some generic keywords for where we know that these are best performing SEO generic keywords. We've started to add them into the Seamless tool so that they get the same protection. So again, we know that we're not cannibalizing when there isn't growth there, but actually when when Seamless can see that there is going to be incrementality, then the bids will be applied as well.
Yeah, that's what's so exciting, I think, particularly for M&S, is that because there's such a big brand and you have such a dominant presence in certain markets, is that your organic position is pretty strong on a lot of generic terms as well. So there's a lot of opportunity to leverage Seamless to give you that peace of mind that your investments are being managed correctly on the generic side too. So that's great. More widely, what has that meant for your marketing budgets and your marketing mix?
Well, it's because we've got that confidence that we are sort of driving incrementality. It has enabled us to sort of like continue to spend on our accounts, even with sort of like cost of living crisis and things like that, where budgets are being pulled back. But we've also, saving in brand generics, this has meant that we can reinvest this into generics and shopping, which we know through sort of like our econometrics modeling are better incremental areas for us. And so that means then we're driving more incremental revenue for the business. But also it's enabled us to sort of like move some spend out into other channels as well, because we know that between both PPC and SEO, we've got a good total search revenue being delivered. And all of this without sort of like risking top line website sales and revenue. So
great. Yeah, no, that's always good to hear, making sure that we're making those more intelligent decisions across the wider space, because branded, again, a lot of the tools that Keir mentioned in the space, think all overlap of paid and organic is bad. And like we said, it's that's not necessarily the case, but it's about finding those areas where it is actually incremental and not cannibalistic. And where it is cannibalistic, putting that money into areas where it could actually drive more growth, more lifetime value for the brand, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, really good to see that and to partner up with kind of the way that you guys are working with your econometric modeling as well. I guess what are the next steps for you in terms of total search?
More optimizations. I think the more data we can use, the better. So we're sort of starting to work with our SEO analyst to sort of like learn what are our best and worst performing keywords and product categories. So from this, we can then further shape our PPC activity. So maybe we can push harder on some keywords that have lower SEO visibility, or push more spend into areas where SEO maybe isn't as dominant or as strong, so that we can sort of like combine and continue to like drive that incremental revenue. But one of the other questions that we are sort of like being asked this year is like, how can we continue to drive growth with lower budgets? The budgets are under pressure. And so we've been working with yourselves with Seamless to sort of like come up with the next solution of how can we increase the ROAS that we're getting to sort of like lower the budgets and lower the spend, but still continue to drive that growth. So sort of like moving that sweet spot on that diminishing returns curve so that we can still drive that. And then the sort of like next thing we also want to consider is our focus at the moment is driving growth and incremental revenue, but we need to consider profitability as well. So we also want to drive a profitable ROAS. So using, combining all that data within Seamless, we'll know that some product categories might have a lower margin, so would be driving a lower profitable ROAS. So, we need to maybe pull back activity on there, but that spend could be reallocated elsewhere. And so using Seamless, we can plug that in to find the gaps and the opportunities to sort of like drive further growth. And I think that's what's quite exciting about how our PPC accounts are set up, that they are very adaptable. So if the business goal changes, so say we just want to push market share at like a low, ROAS is less important, we can use the Seamless tool to sort of like help shape that and grow that revenue and keep our activity at the right time and at the right place so that, we can deliver the business goal.
Yeah, that's great. I think particularly on that point around the PPC and SEO side coming a bit close together. I think that's a common problem. I think for most brands, and you guys are definitely a bit further ahead than others. Is there seems to be not a lot of data flow between those two departments, and Seamless historically is a tool for paid side of things, which leverages organic data, but what we're hoping to do and partner with you guys on is, closing the loop in that side of things and actually helping SEOs understand where they could significantly reduce the paid budget by improving the position and feeding that data back is really where we're hoping to grow both with yourselves and the tool ultimately as well.
That sounds good. Yeah.
That's great. And one final question for me was just, do you have any advice for anyone looking to take their first steps into total search?
Well, go for it for starters, because you're more than likely to be being challenged on spend and making the accounts more efficient. And I think this is the easy way. Like the examples, the questions that Kia was going through earlier are exactly all the questions that we've had from M&S, like how do I drive more revenue for less spend, and how do I make sure that, I can help, drive more SEO and pull back PPC. So I think, also on your slide, it said some easy wins that you can do just by even looking at your top 10 like SEO driving keywords, maybe just even like reducing what activity you have in the account for PPC on those ones. But, if you have the opportunity, then, we've been using Seamless for a few years, and I feel like it's a really good tool. It leverages all that data automatically, so you don't actually have to we don't have to be involved in it. But I know that I can confidently say to my senior team that this is, our activity is fully optimized and we're driving growth.
Great. Yeah. That drive more revenue with less spend. That's a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. And like I said, I think here listed a few good points there on how you can get started, even without Seamless. There's the Google paid and organic reports is a much neglected tool. So we always suggest to everyone, make sure as a very first step, you get those linking up your Google ads in your search console, and then you can at least see how click volumes vary when you do, make changes to paid, what happens to organic, et cetera. And you can design some tests off the back of that. But yeah, if you are interested in the full revenue profit sort of based model that Seamless runs on, we're always happy to help. Well, thank you so much for that, Kaz. I really appreciate you taking the time. It was really insightful to hear how M&S have gone on this journey. And I think we don't have too many questions in the chat right now, so I think you're gonna get off scot free here, Kaz. So thank you very much for taking the time, Kaz. We appreciate you being here.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. In terms of next steps, you will all, hopefully those of you watching live at least, will be able to receive an email including some of this content that we have here. So you'll see some additional information on our success stories booklet. There's also the opportunity to get your own version of the seamless search dashboard, which Keir previewed a bit to you. So just with access to Search Console and Google Ads, we can create that for your data. You'll also receive our search trends infographic. And if you will also get the opportunity to revisit our talk and access, that should be Keir's presentation slides, not mine. And you'll hopefully have that all come through over email. But brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate you joining. Please do get in touch if you do want to have any questions about how you can leverage total search or how you can get involved with seamless search. We are always more than happy to have that conversation with anyone. So thank you again for joining. I appreciate the time and I hope you have a nice rest of your afternoon. Thank you. Bye.